Hey guys, I wanted to talk about today. Just made the video, but then the battery died and I lost the video. So today, of course, is 9/11, and it's memories for a lot of people that are horrible because either they were there or they lost their parent or another loved one. Um, for me, I remember getting up that morning because my mother came in my room and sat on the edge of my bed and told me that a plane had hit one of the World Trade Towers. I'm going, the tallest building in New York City? How? you know? You don't just not see that. And it didn't make sense. And then my mother's in the kitchen saying, oh my God, over and over again. What's going on? Because I hadn't dragged myself out of bed yet. And she said, hit the other tower. I'm like, huh? So I got up and I got to see the replay of the second plane hit. And we were under attack. There was no other way to look at it. It was a terrorist attack. And I remember when they blew up the parking garage underneath the Trade Center one other time. In fact, there was a movie made about it that I watched, a TV movie. And that was bad enough. But this was on a whole other level of bad. And I remember watching and seeing what they call the falling man fall out a window. And I remember clenching my hand over my mouth and then saying to my mother, did we just watch someone die? With tears in my eyes. Yeah, we did. And just watching all the chaos. Now keep in mind, I live in the neighboring state to New York, 3 hours from New York City. So I'm pretty close. Just so you know. I'm 3 hours from my aunt and uncle in upstate New York, and I'm 3 hours from New York City the other way in New York. So I remember kids taking casual rides to New York City. I remember I have had friends that have gone into New York City for New Year's Eve. No, thank you. So it's not... foreign to me whatsoever. Like, it may seem like it would still affect you out in California, Utah, Colorado, don't get me wrong. But for me, being so close, I think it was a little scarier, Especially knowing they came out of Boston less than an hour away, depending on traffic. Generally speaking, it will take you an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and 30 minutes to get into Boston because of traffic from here. If you left early in the morning like we did for procedures, you can get up there in 45 minutes with zero traffic if you're lucky. But there's almost never zero traffic unless you leave at the butt crack of dawn. Yeah. So at that point, like I said, once she told me the second one hit, we started watching it together, and which is like, what, why, how, you know? And the reporters who are supposed to be giving you the W's, what, when, where, wait, what, when, where, who, and the H, which is how. I learned this actually being a reporter for school newspapers and stuff like that. So, and stories I wrote for our local little weekly free paper. So yeah. And you know, that's the only thing I have left in my father's name is that paper. You know, when I move to Uxbridge, it's, I don't want to change it. But anyway, so my dad called at noon like he usually did, and my mother's like, have you been, are you aware? Because he worked in a mill, there weren't TVs around. He said, yeah, we've got the radio on. It's absolutely horrible. And I made supper, shaking as I peeled potatoes, and put the meat in the oven because our oven was bad at the time. We needed a new one. That stupid oven, no matter what meat you put in it, would take 2 hours to bake it. You couldn't bake cake bread because the heating element was going bye-bye. And we did get a new one shortly before we moved, which was several years later. And I just then hit the Pentagon. And my mother's boss, who also had been someone my father had known all his life, they had been friends, but not as close as some of the other people. And he had called and we were talking, and it hit the Pentagon while I was on the phone with him giving my mother the phone. And at first they thought a bomb went off in the Pentagon. They didn't realize a plane had hit it. I kind of thought that the air around the Pentagon, the White House, that's a no-fly zone, isn't it? I mean, I could be wrong there, but I thought that was no-fly zone. And it was bad. Then the one crashed in Pennsylvania while we were on the phone with Rick, and that one was headed to the White House. I was like, Flight 93. And in case you didn't know this, in aviation, if a plane crashes, has a horrible crash, that flight number is retired. Just like if a hurricane is horrible, they retire that name, and no other hurricanes can ever be named that name. Well, it's the same thing in aviation with flight numbers. There will never be another Flight 93, a flight, well, all the flights, all the 4 flights, those flight numbers will never be used again. And that's true in any crash. Pan Am 103 will never be used again. So, just in case you didn't know that, it's just like hurricanes, like I said. They don't. That was nothing. So yeah. um, I remember the falling man. I just clamped my hand over my mouth and I said, Mom, did we just watch someone die? You know, fall to their death? And she said, yeah. Just kind of, what the, you know? And when 1 and 2 collapsed, I remember my mother and I looking at each other like they imploded. That is not at all what, you know, in a straight line. I'm not going to get into controversy, but immediately we both smelled a rat somewhere. Still don't know where that rat was, but yeah. Go away. And it was awful. And the president was reading storybooks to little kids in Florida, and they had to go in and tell him. And he had to keep a calm, straight face in front of all these little kids. I give President Bush Jr. a lot of credit for 9/11, for how he handled it. I really do. Because, yeah. And, excuse me. And, text message. I don't care. I don't care. Good. Anyway, so 9/11 was terrible. And I remember after supper we had to go to Walmart to get a few things. And I remember Walmart was in a different spot than it is now. And because now we have the big supercenter. And they had, you know, the advertising TVs that they have over each of the checkouts. Well, they had those all on reports about what was happening, and they had all the TVs in the electronics department. And I remember I stopped by the electronics department for something, and I just stood there and was looking at it. All of a sudden, I hear screaming and running, and reporter running, and more of the copious amounts of cement dust coming down. Well, it turns out number 7 had collapsed. So I ran and found my parents. I'm like, number 7 just collapsed. And we got in line shortly after that, and we were watching it on the TV in line, just shaking our heads, you know, and never forget this day. Because if you forget history, you're doomed to repeat it. This is something we do not want to repeat. It's a national holiday for a reason. Over 1,500 Americans died in a single day, in a single coordinated attack. So, thank you so much for listening, for being here. And like I said, when my team order gets here, I will open it with you guys and put my new plug in the kitchen, and I'll have a new longer plug for my tablet in the bedroom. That's basically what I got. So I'm looking forward to finally getting it. because one of my bedrooms is a little too short. And this one is the sideways one, so that when I'm playing my game, my house game, Design Home, it has to be straight up and down, vertical. It's not a game that will allow you to turn it. I think they all should do that, but so I got the curved, well, not curved, but it comes out and goes over this way so that you can have it straight up and it's not putting tension on the cord, because the cord will be flat because it goes like this. So the cord will be flat and there won't be tension on it, on the wires being bent a weird way. So I actually prefer those. Ever since I found out about those, if I have a choice when I'm getting a cord, that's what I want. Especially for my tablet. My phone, it doesn't matter so much. Because if I'm using my phone and it's plugged in, I'm probably talking on it, so it doesn't matter. But with my tablet, I need that. So, but I will show it to you when it gets here. But it'll go up tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I will see you tomorrow on this channel and Kid Missing. Bye, guys.